Take your seats. Dear guests,
Gentlemen, please take your seats so that we begin with this very interesting panel called the European Peace Project in the Western Balkans. I would like to thank all the panelists for coming and also the audience for participating. Since we have only 1 hour, I'm going to be quite short, and hopefully we are going to get as many answers as possible to the questions which are of our interest. James Joyce once written, "History is a nightmare from which I'm trying to awake." So this is something that we will try to see today. Has the Western Balkans awakened from this nightmare, or is the nightmare still so persistent that it doesn't allow the region to move more quickly towards the sustainable and peaceful future? Equally, we will try to understand and to assess how the European Union was conducting its activities in the region for the last 20 years, what went right, what went wrong, and did we collectively do enough for the reconciliation, regional cooperation and stability in the region. Of course, this debate comes at the times of great, I would say, tectonic shifts in the geostrategic environment in Europe, but also elsewhere in the world, caused by the Russian aggression on Ukraine. And we are going to talk also about how this is going to change the whole narrative in the region and how the region is going to look like after everything is said and done. With this, I would like to invite Artan Grubi, first Vice Minister, to have a keynote address. Please, Vice Minister.
Is it working now? Yes. Loud and clear. Hi everyone, good to see you. Dear host, I don't see the host here, but I will anyhow say hello to Bujar and congratulations on organizing the second Prespa Forum Dialogue. Honorable Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Greece and Croatia, Mr. Dendias and Mr. Radman, dear Mr. Navarro, Mr. Lajčák, Monsieur Leroy, Mr. Kuchik, I saw him earlier as well, Mr. Hani, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear leaders of institutions, media representatives, dear ambassadors. The fact that we are reuniting today in Ohrid makes me actually very proud as we continue to build on the successful work of the first conference organized last year. Starting from next year, I believe that we are going to join forces with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in rebranding this forum to Peace Forum Dialogue by also including the reflections of the Ohrid Peace Agreement with the mere hope that by then we will have already concluded and included the agreement of good neighborliness with Bulgaria. This would round up the success story called Macedonia yesterday and North Macedonia today. Our success story has its origin in our stubborn determination for reconciliation. Reconciliation in the country, between ourselves, reconciliation in the region, with the neighbors through the zero open issues with them, reconciliation in the wider region, and reconciliation with our family that we belong to, that is the Euro-Atlantic, Euro-American community. Only when we decided to reconcile, we began to live up to the values of equality. We no longer hindered each other's right to education in our mother tongue. We were no longer hindered in the workplace by other ethnicity colleagues. We were no longer hindered by the names of the schools in each other's language. We were no longer hindered by each other's language and flag. Last year, we marked the 20th anniversary of the Ohrid Agreement as a joint success of the two largest communities in the country, the smaller communities, as well as the contribution of the international community. This year, we aim to turn the culture of reconciliation, conflict resolution, peace building into a school for young leaders in order to establish our example as a unique case of coexistence and prosperity. As a matter of fact, our journey of reconciliation did not end here. We signed the Prespa Agreement by amending the Constitution, and we proved to the world the best example of peacemaking, the model of resolving all disputes. The act of reconciliation with our friendly neighbor Greece opened our doors to NATO, and on the way to the European Union, we already have established a lasting friendship. Did we lose anything out of this? Absolutely nothing. Here we are, forming new friendships within the common family, safer, stronger, and more united. Dear all, after these two great achievements, the interethnic reconciliation in the country and the overcoming of the long-standing dispute, the only few things that we could resolve, with the same approach a few weeks ago, we resolved as well the dispute of autocephaly of the country's Orthodox Church. We are rounding up our success story with the help of our friends in the democratic world and with our own determined and stubborn commitment. Today's forum is being held in crucial and pivotal circumstances for the completions of the reconciling journey in the final days of a bilateral dialogue which is being facilitated again by the friends of our country. In the dispute with neighboring Bulgaria, we are doing everything in our power to align our positions and unlock our path of integration through building the newest friendship. We are not tired. We are not desperate. We will not give up. Contrary to that, we are more than determined to overcome this obstacle and together with the neighbors of the Western Balkans to see ourselves anchored in the EU harbor. But this anchoring must be dignified with the utmost respect for the identity, cultural, and linguistic definitions of our Macedonian fellow citizens. There can be no other way. North Macedonia, this success story, is a shared responsibility of all of us, local forces, neighbors, the region, the European Union and the United States. And for it to be a complete success, we must take the last step together and with dignity. Our country is a crossroad of the Western Balkans. Three of the directions of this crossroads are already built, right, and solid. One direction leads to the Ohrid Agreement, the other direction leads to the Prespa Agreement, the third direction leads to the autocephaly of our church. The only remaining direction that needs to be successfully completed is the fourth one, the direction of good neighboring that will take us home to Brussels. Next time, I wish that we meet at the completed 4 directions of this crossroad and we celebrate together in our family. Thank you. You've been very kind.
Thank you very much, First Deputy Prime Minister, because I think I forgot the prime when I introduced you. My mistake, my apologies. And now, 2 special guest addresses. First one is going to be by Nikos Dendias, Foreign Minister of Greece. Please, Mr. Dendias, the floor is yours.
Well, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends, it's such a great pleasure to participate in today's forum, engaging in the dialogue which provides an opportunity to discuss the challenges and prospects of the Western Balkans, prospects that are linked to the European future of the region, and challenges we can collectively overcome by focusing our efforts on the stability and prosperity of our region. And since there is pessimism sometimes around, may I say that we do have success stories in the Balkans. And I'm here representing one success story, our relation with North Macedonia. 10 years ago, who would have said that the Greek foreign minister would come to a forum called Prespa Forum and advocate for the European future of North Macedonia? So we can be optimistic. Can I now talk a little about our big home, our big family, the European Union? The European Union was created as a visionary prospect of peace, a project that would promote economic and political integration. And today's European Union is the outcome of that initial choice, a choice that we, Europeans, need to defend. We should continue to strive tirelessly for cementing peace, stability, and sustainable development. Within this equation, it is impossible to imagine Europe without its southeastern region. Southeast Europe in general, and the Western Balkans in particular, have always belonged to Europe. Like other parts of the continent, the Western Balkans have experienced armed conflicts. That is known. But geographically, historically, culturally, they belong to Europe. The bitter legacy has left behind, even today, an amount of mistrust, an amount of nationalism, and an amount of lack of reconciliation. These potentially very risky elements coincide with a set of crises in the wider region linked to economy, energy, and food. Crises caused or aggravated by the illegal and unprovoked war in Ukraine. However, there are significant positive indications as well. The war in Ukraine highlighted the strategic importance of the European Union-Western Balkans relationship. The European Union remains the biggest trade and investment partner of the Western Balkans. Cooperation on foreign policy with Western Balkan partners has stepped up also in relation to Ukraine. As our region tries to endure the impact of war, it is crucial that the European Union contributes to this effort. The economic investment plan is expected to bring tangible benefits to citizens and businesses. It is also expected to reinforce the region's sustainable growth, including interconnectivity. In this context, the region's European integration remains an unfinished business, 19 years after the 2003 Thessaloniki Agenda. The European Union and the Western Balkans should do their own share in this respect. Our partners need to fulfill the relevant criteria according to the set conditionality, but also the European Union needs to get the enlargement in the Western Balkans back on track, and very quickly, if I may say so. Greece is doing its utmost to contribute to this collective effort. I have recently visited all capitals of the region to convey messages of support for our partners' European perspective, as well as to highlight the need for reconciliation. I wish to reiterate what my Prime Minister Mitsotakis, mentioned on June the 10th. said, in accordance with the set criteria, let us offer the potential of completing the integration of all of the Western Balkans into the European Union by 2033, an ambitious but absolutely achievable timeline. I would like to conclude with a word of caution regarding the presence of third actors in the region. Actors which promote adversarial political and economic agendas. Such agendas, different to the European agenda, run counter to our collective interests and they attempt to undermine the European Union-Western Balkans relationship. So we should all work closely together, very closely together, so that we can turn the region into a truly European neighborhood. Put this region into the European family where it actually belongs. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And for the second address, I would like to invite to the floor His Excellency, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Croatia, Gordan Grlić Radman. Please, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Prime Minister. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to use this opportunity to express my gratitude to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of North Macedonia, Boyar Osmani, who just arrived, and thank you very much, Boyar, for your hospitality. I'm here in North Macedonia since what is it today, Thursday, since the Tuesday evening, and we spent yesterday a beautiful day in Skopje, and thank you very much for organizing me and my delegation so many very important meetings with the high-ranking officials of North Macedonia. And I came here with a message that Croatia is got along with your pro-European aspiration, that Croatia strongly supports the European perspective for North Macedonia, and we would like to see North Macedonia in the European family. It's not by accident that so during the EU presidency in 2020, during the Croatian EU presidency, we issued this in the declaration, and actually we organized the meeting, summit, Western Balkan Summit, and we issued this declaration that's the negotiations there with North Macedonia and Albania should start as soon as possible. EU enlargement on Western Balkans remains crucial, and of course you can count on us, and North Macedonia deserves to be a part of the European family. And also thank you, Bora, for your active engagement and for your readiness and for your credibility, and when it comes to the discussion and representing the national interest of North Macedonia among the different fora, as first of all NATO, we are allies, that's good, and of course sometime when we have we invited the leaders of Western Balkans to some of the conferences among the foreign affairs councils. So distinguished guests, one of the most important questions for us is in the EU under current circumstances is why should we be interested in the expansion and enlargement of the EU in the Western Balkans? Democracy, equality, rule of law, a shared sense of identity and promoting EU values and principles are all excellent arguments for answering this question. However, these arguments seemed enough until 24th of February. Without exaggeration, today's moment in international relations can be compared to the period of the early 1990s, when communism collapsed in Europe and war hit Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. The war ultimately created the conditions for a great rearrangement of the previous international relations. Not many years later, in 2004, 10 new countries that mainly belonged to the Warsaw Pact or to former Soviet Union joined the European Union. With that, and Croatia's entry in 2013, the enlargement process seemed to be temporarily completed. The process of enlargement brought stability and reunited Europe after years of artificial division created during the Cold War. It made the EU the world's biggest single market and increased trade between member states, further contributing the economic growth and strengthening of Europe's weight in global affairs. Today, political, social, or economic fatigue can no longer be an excuse for enlargement fatigue, because we are at a turning point which will determine the destiny of this part of Europe, but also of the entire EU. Russia's aggression on Ukraine has shed a new light on the perspective of the Western Balkan countries and their aspiration to join the European Union. In particular, this new political situation has shown us all that the existing status quo of internal stalemate is no longer viable nor stable. Consequently, a new strategic vision is needed for the future of the region in order to guarantee not only its stability but also its democratization and economic development. Future EU membership for the Western Balkans is in the true political, security and economic interest of the Union, but also of Croatia. We shared common history. Croatia, Western Balkans, Southeast Europe. Southeast Europe is immediate neighborhood of Croatia. It's up to our stability to have all these countries in the European Union. You can count on Croatia. Enlargement has always been a major contribution to the European project, and it needs to continue with more determination. At the same time, Western Balkans countries have to do their best to make our decision easier. This includes much needed reforms, particularly in key areas such as rule of law, judicial reform, the fight against corruption and organized crime, security and democratization of institutions. Present challenges require a normalization of relations among peoples and states in the Western Balkans. Political stability can only be achieved if it is based on tolerance and respect and through dialogue. And North Macedonia is a good example for that, a good model based on tolerance and respect as a paradigm also for the European Union. 70 years ago, actually, you got this EU candidacy. And 70 years, you haven't started with the negotiation with the European Union. That means at that time you were ready for that, together with Croatia. And you started before than Croatia. And who more than Croatia is willing you to in the European family? You are welcome, North Macedonia. Also, the issue of inequality, it's another issue, it's another question. The issue of inequality of the constituent peoples and discrimination in electoral process in Bosnia and Herzegovina needs to be addressed. Who more than Croatia knows the history and has really experience when it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina? The nature of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the multinational nature of Bosnia and Herzegovina must be understood even better. And it's about us, it's up to us to help to assist the Bosnia and Herzegovina on the way to European Union. Croatia borders Bosnia and Herzegovina more than 1,000 kilometers, and it's in our national interest to have a stable institution, functional and prosperous Bosnia and Herzegovina. With the Russian aggression on Ukraine, as well as threats to other countries in its neighborhood, it is important to help and assist our Western Balkans partners in achieving their strategic choice to join the EU through implementing required reforms and fulfilling set criteria. At the same time, we must be aware of the situation we are currently in, so I call for more solidarity, understanding and patience. So the Schumann's triptych, reconciliation, solidarity and peace. We were divided in the differences, but we have to in the diversity. But we should be united in the diversity. It is actually model of the common life. In this very challenging and very dangerous world in 21st century, no one meant that something could happen in the 21st century with this aggression and the crisis in Ukraine. The current circumstances require building synergies and solidarity. Dear friends, I will end my speech with the same message as last year. The only way to resolve disputes is through bilateral dialogue, to dialogue. It's through dialogue. Knowing compromise is not a sign of weakness. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again, also dear Boyar, for your attention, and see you soon in Croatia on Dubrovnik Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now we have approximately half an hour to save the world. So it's going to be a quick quiz where all the participants will have 3 minutes to express their ideas and suggestions and things they want to say. First, I will turn to Alan Leroy, since we are in Ohrid, and I know that Ohrid is dear to you. You have been here during the Ohrid Framework Agreement. This is my first question, lessons learned. Why was it possible to achieve this agreement? And as the first Vice Prime Minister said, this is something which is working, the implementation is there. Why some of the things which are open from the past, we can't do it. Let's say we can't move on the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, we can't move on the things that need to be done in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That's my first question, so lessons learned. And the second one, it's a little bit easier. In your opinion, since you are French, and you have a lot of experience also in the Quai d'Orsay, President Macron came out with this idea of the political community. What is it about? And how this relates to the Western Balkan countries? Please.
Thank you very much. First, allow me to say one more time, I'm pleased always to be back in North Macedonia. I've been here during the hard times, but I'm always glad to be back in the good times for North Macedonia and also for the region. You mentioned about the Ohrid Framework Agreement. I think First Vice Minister Artem Groby called it a success story. It's, for me, clearly, and for the EU side, it's clearly a success story. The whole purpose was, of course, to have peace, dialogue, reconciliation, and democratic institution. And now we got clearly North Macedonia, which is clearly a functioning multi-ethnic state, multi-ethnic democratic state. And I think nobody can dispute that. I would just add maybe one figure. The conflict at the time in here, there were 200 people died, less than 200 people died during the conflict. If you compare another war, civil war in the region, it counts in several thousand. So that's also one very big achievement, of course, and maybe also why the reconciliation was easier, because the number of dead. Okay. And why did that happen, I think? Obviously for political will. Political will, I would say first from the EU, and of course, most important, from the leaders here. Maybe first from the EU side first. There was a clear political will. I remember I was saying to my neighbor how Mr. Solana, as a high representative at that time, was so engaged. He was coming here so many times. He was my boss at the time, and he was completely engaged. But also it was clear that the EU was both willing and united to ensure that no another war would start here in this country. And I say united because it has not always been the case within the EU. If you remember, in 1991 or 1992, when, for example, Croatia and Slovenia declared independence, there was no unity within the European countries. And of course, then the EU has no real influence, no weight when it's disunited. So it's another lesson. in 2001, 2002, the EU was completely united here. Okay. And my guess also, if the EU had been more united also in 95, in 92, 95, maybe the war in Bosnia would have been shorter. That's another issue. We can discuss that another day. So, political will, unity of the EU. But of course, from here, the most important, even more important, the political will of the leaders of this country. And I always remember the signatory of this Ohrid Agreement. First, late President Trajkovsky had full admiration for him. And I must remember at that time his advisor was Mr. Stevo Pendarovsky. And I worked with him many times, including many nights during that time. And of course, the other leaders, Ali Ahmeti, Arben Jaferi, Lubcho Georgievsky, Branko Czerwilkowski, Radmila Shekerinska, all these responsive leaders were able to sign together this document, which is still lasting today. Not a perfect document, of course, but very important document lasting today. So I don't want to be too long on this. I could speak hours on the Ohrid Agreement, but maybe I answer your second question, which is the idea launched by President Macron in a Strasbourg statement a few weeks ago about a European political community. I know this word has raised many questions and maybe some ambiguity. I try to be clear of what we have in mind, what France, what President Macron has in mind with this. First, to be perfectly crystal clear, this is not an alternative to EU membership, and it is not a substitute to the enlargement process. Let me be crystal clear, and I'm sure that President Charles Michel, which is very much in favor of this European political community, may have said that already today in his press conference. And not a substitute, not an alternative, for sure. It's an idea to gather all willing states from the European continent, those who are in the process of enlargement, like many in the region, but also those who are not willing to be in the EU, like the UK, or countries who are not interested, but at least to ensure that we all are there. Okay. And that could be, our intention, that will be discussed, in fact, next week in the European Summit, and President Charles Michel is very much also in the lead on this. And the idea, we want this European Political Committee to be launched this year. It will be a very light legal structure with decision-making process and discussing many issues like energy security, food security, so many of and economic, political issues. And of course, it will be an occasion to meet with the European leaders and the Western Balkan leaders, those who would like, of course, to join the European Political Committee on all the issues, and that could be in some way an accelerator to the enlargement process. And by the way, I say just one word on the enlargement process. As you know, that France has presidency of the European Union until the end of this month, and end of June, is working hard together with others, Germany, with of course, Charles Michel and others, to try to help finding an agreement between North Macedonia and Bulgaria, which is absolutely key. I don't know if we are going to succeed by the next European Summit on 23rd June, but I can tell you that President Macron himself has worked very, very hard on this issue. So, come back to the European political community. We want this to be a meeting of the leaders several times a year, and also at leaders' meeting, at leaders' level, and at ministerial level. And we consider that would be another way to have more, and we have so much in common, including those who are not yet members of the European Union. And one more time, I say to conclude, not an alternative to EU membership and not a substitute to enlargement process, which shall continue. And as I said, we as France are working hard during our presidency to ensure that the International Government Conference could start as soon as possible, both for North Macedonia and Albania. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leroy. Let me turn now to Miroslav Lajčák, who I don't have to introduce because I think everybody knows him in this part of Europe. Mr. Leroy was speaking about political will, this elusive holy grail which we are looking for the last 20 years in Thessaloniki in the Western Balkans. And in the meantime, as they say, time is mean. And in the meantime, things changed. We have a Russian aggression now on Ukraine, which totally change the whole geostrategic landscape in Europe. How is this going to affect the Western Balkans and the relations between the Balkans and the region? When we were talking about the relations in the past, we used this word strategic patience, that we have always been strategically patient. Now we don't have any more time to be patient, but we need to be strategic. Is this the time that we do bold moves also when it comes to solving issues in the Western Balkans?
Well, you are right. The Russia's aggression against Ukraine has shaken the pillars of global architecture and has shown us that nothing can be taken for granted, not even peace in Europe. But when it comes to the Balkans, I would say that this war, this tragedy has also had a positive impact, because it shows there is no time for complacency. We cannot have strategic patience. It brought back the attention to our unfinished business in the Western Balkans, and it has made it clear that the region cannot wait, cannot be left stuck in between the two realities. That means we need to speed up the process of full European integration of the Western Balkans. I would also say that the war in Ukraine has made the enlargement process political again. It has shown clearly that this is not a technical exercise. Of course, there are technical criteria that has to be met, but first and foremost, it is a political process which is based on shared values. And our partners have demonstrated that they are sharing values with us. And finally, I would say that the war in Russia's war in Ukraine has also created a momentum where we can speed up this process. But the momentum will not transfer into a new reality, new quality by itself. That's very important to say. We cannot sit and wait for this momentum to begin. We need to turn this into a new quality. And when I say we, I mean both the EU27 and the Western Balkans 6. We need to use this momentum, this political attention, the understanding that this is the time when we have to make bold decisions, and both parties in this have to do their part. If you ask me, what is the new quality, what is the new reality? Of course, the beginning is opening accession negotiation with North Macedonia and Albania now. Then, of course, granting visa-free regime for Kosovo. Then addressing the dysfunctionality of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Then, of course, achieving significant progress in normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia. Then closing the chapters that have been open but remain open for so many years for Serbia and North Macedonia. So all in all, to show that the European membership, European perspective is tangible, is realistic, and is within the reach of the current generation of political leaders.
Thank you very much. When listening to you, everything seems so clear. You have really nice steps which, if they would materialize, Western Balkans would reach its goals, becoming a member of European Union. Is this path clear also inside of the European Union? Is this unity that also Mr. Leroy was speaking, that European Union once had, is it still there, or did we found it again?
We are mentioning, and rightly so, the Prespa agreement a lot. And the Prespa shows that nothing is impossible, or as Nelson Mandela used to say, it always seems impossible until it's done. So what we need is courage, is vision, is leadership. And this is the moment when we need to demonstrate it. European Union is deciding on the basis of consensus, we know it, and we need to do our best to reach the consensus. But I really hope that the political leaders should rise to the occasion, because this is the moment that will not be repeated.
Thank you. And my last question, do you see this courage, this strategic vision already happening at the next European Council?
I think that's the wish of everyone present in this room, and let's hope that our wish will turn into this new quality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lajcak. Now I will turn to State Secretary Navarro. Spain is a long way away, I would say, from the Western Balkans, but it's also affected as all the rest in terms of what is happening here, in terms of how the region is progressing. We see a little bit of a shift in your activities around and about the Western Balkans, also because of the new Prime Minister who has experience from the region. He was in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and now you are preparing for the presidency of the EU, which is going to start soon. What is going to be, or let me put it like this, what is your biggest wish for your presidency in terms of the Western Balkans? What would you like that Western Balkans would become during your presidency?
Okay, thank you. Yes, the enlargement to the Western Balkans is on the agenda. It is obvious that it's going to be higher on the agenda of the European Union. I hope, like Mr. Lajčák said, that this European Council will show that this is going to be highest in the agenda because of the present situation, and we think it's necessary. And yes, for the Spanish presidency of the for the Council of the European Union in the second semester of next year, we hope that this is going to be a priority of the agenda. I hope that it will be a priority on our agenda. Minister Dendias, we don't need further stress telling that the job should be done by the end of 2023. I know that there is a pressure to have results. We will do our best, and we hope to have results by then. Spain is a country very much in favor of enlargement in general, and in particular to the Western Balkans. You said that. We are friends of the enlargement. We are a country of enlargement. We belong to the wave of enlargement, like with Greece, the Mediterranean enlargement in the 80s with Greece and Portugal. I don't want to teach anything to any country, but just to say that we spent 10 years of negotiations, that we were coupled with Portugal, and that we had to spend one more year waiting for solving some bilateral problems with our French neighbor. So nothing new under the old sun, that I would say. So this is how it works. But of course, enlargement was a huge success for Spain. The integration of the European Union was a huge success. We cannot imagine Spain without the European Union. We are the European Union, and it's the essence of Spain is to be in the European Union. We have contributed a lot to the European Union also. And we think that every single European country, and particularly the Western Balkans, has the right to enter the European Union. I am sure that despite all the difficulties in the process, the result will be a huge success for them. And also they will contribute to us. So we will do whatever necessary during our presidency. We'll put all the resources for that, because we are a strong believer in that. Just to add that for us, enlargement is not another policy of the European Union. It's the Constitution of the European Union. So we have to follow the rules and the procedures. No shortcuts, no fast tracks, but no institutional alternatives. So I agree with you. No alternatives, no other process, and no other alternative processes. So this is the spirit which I am here preparing our presidency, and listen to all the friends and the colleagues that precedes me, and working together with countries like Greece, for example, we work closely, and that's what brought me here today. And thank you.
Thank you very much, State Secretary, and I would like to welcome Ivo Kučuk, just in time to bring us some good news, probably, in terms of resolving issues we are talking about resolving issues in the Western Balkans. And maybe I turn to you. You have been rapporteur for the North Macedonia in European Parliament. June European Council is around the corner. Your estimation, what can we expect? What is the situation in Bulgaria right now? And how do we move from this situation of status quo to something tangible, something sustainable?
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this distinguished panel, and sorry for being late due to my previous commitments. I'm not here to speak on behalf of the Bulgarian government, but I'm here to give you my perspective as a standing rapporteur, and I know what the European Parliament was saying in the last couple of years. Certainly, the engagement between European institutions and North Macedonia, and I would say Albania, are very strong, and will continue doing that because it's of utmost importance. And if I may quote myself, I think the status quo, as you described it, is a lose-lose situation. I would say even triple lose. It's a lose for European Union because we are losing credibility as an important political and I would say geopolitical actor in the region. It's a lose for Bulgaria because Bulgaria is the closest nation to North Macedonia, and it's a lose, of course, for North Macedonia as a country, but also as a citizens, because I strongly believe the citizens of North Macedonia deserves to have Euro-Atlantic straightforward path because the country committed to the values, because the country is delivering tangible results. Certainly, the European Union is a strategic choice of the countries from the region, but at a certain point, I think we need to have some lessons learned from the past. And the first lesson, I think, is what we can promise, and if we promise that, are we really able to deliver that? If we are not able to deliver that, I would say we don't have to promise it, because otherwise we give a different impression to the region. And if you take the recent polls, you can certainly see the backsliding on some democratic principles because of inability of the European Union to keep its own promises. I think that is a very important lesson learned when it comes also to the debate around Ukraine and how we can handle the issue of Ukraine and how we can go forward with the country's candidate status in the next couple of days and weeks. I do believe that the way forward should be, as usual, more inclusive process, strengthening the relationship. European Union was playing an important role during the COVID pandemic and after that. But it's not about money. It's about being credible in political sense, giving the positive messages to the citizens. And that was my second message always in this country. Whatever you think and whatever you do in your internal politics, take the debate on European issues, take the debate on Euro-Atlantic aspiration of the country a bit higher in your agenda, and cooperate. And that is the main message to the opposition. Cooperate with the government when it comes to strategic interests of the countries, because the governments are changing, and that's the logic of pure democracy. But it's important that we keep the citizens engaged with the values of the European Union. And that means security, prosperity, and better future for the entire region.
Thank you very much for this. Now let me turn to Permanent Secretary Corneliu. It's not about money, we heard. What is it about? What is it about in the relations between the Western Balkans and the European Union? Is this peace project something tangible, something that we understand, something that is attainable in the near future, or is this peace project, like European Union, a work in progress which will never finish with the Western Balkans becoming, or the countries of the Western Balkans becoming members of the European Union? We are talking a lot about strategic autonomy. What I'm saying is strategic autonomy starts at home of European Union. It starts in the heart of Europe in the Western Balkans. So if European Union can't solve its relations and move forward the region, probably this strategic autonomy is also something which is not achievable. What are you thinking about this?
Well, first of all, I mean, Europe is much more about than Europe. I come from a divided country, from a volatile region, and seeing the first Deputy Prime Minister of North Macedonia and the Foreign Minister of Greece sharing this panel, it's a very moving experience, and really I'm very happy that I am at the same panel. And this gives us hope that there is a future, a bright future for a region that shares bitter memories, has a very complicated present, but I strongly believe it has a bright future within the family of the European Union. It's more than money, definitely, as I said. Europe, the European Union, will never be complete without the region of Western Balkans. So we are very much supporting the inclusion of this region in the European Union. I think there is no alternative to that. And I hope that next year, when we will participate at this panel, we will have with us the Bulgarian Foreign Minister and the Foreign Minister of North Macedonia sharing this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is the hope that we are all sharing. We actually hope that they are going to come together even earlier. Maybe just a second question about, you said you are coming from a, I wouldn't say dangerous, but divisive region with a lot of problems, the Mediterranean. What are the lessons learned for the Western Balkans, which you could share?
I think you said yourself that the European Union is a peace project. I studied in West Germany. I needed to change currency to visit France. I needed a visa to visit Hungary. So what we have achieved collectively is a miracle. This is the best signal and the best lesson that we offer to our partners in Western Balkans. So they need not to lose hope. They need to redouble their efforts, and I'm sure that soon they will join us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also remember when it was first time when I went to buy Levi trouser to Trieste without Carabinieri waiting for me at the border. So definitely. Regional cooperation. Regional cooperation. Albert Hanich is RICO Secretary General. Young people, we are always talking about young people. Young people are, always on our minds. Now with the conference which the French presidency is organizing, we are again going to talk about the youth and the perspective of the youth in the Western Balkans. But it seems that it's a lot of talk and very little has been done, except RICO. RICO is a product which gives hope that another generation is not going to be lost. Because since Thessaloniki, it passed 20 years. So one generation actually was lost, or it went to Western Europe and the US. What can we do, in your opinion, more in terms to engage young people to be more of a force of change, a force of reforms in the Western Balkans as they are now? Because, in terms of regional cooperation, not a lot of things are working. For example, mutual recognition of diplomas. This hasn't been done. It's on the table for 10 years. Mutual recognition of professional qualifications, and so on and so on. Tell me, Mr. Hani.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for having me here. It's really an honor to be in circle of such a distinguished people and such a prestigious event. I mean, when we talk about youth, yes, we are relating it to the time. And time is, of course, a relative thing. It took over 20 years for Germany and France to form OFAGE, or the German-French Youth Cooperation, and produce over millions millions of successes or opportunities for youth. It took RICO almost 20 years after the Balkan Wars to be formed as intergovernmental organization, as a mechanism, peace mechanism or reconciliation mechanism to support the youth of the region of, in the region of Western Balkan. The youth is really having a different perception of the time, in fact, at the moment, because they are having easy access to information. It's a digital world that we are living in. But what we noticed is that they really want changes now. They see what is happening around them, and they want it right now. And we need to urgently to answer to them. We need really, first of all, to open conditions, to create conditions for their better life in the places where they live, especially better conditions in the region of Western Balkans. We really need to be aware that over 52% of youth are willing to go out of the region and, as you say, still go in the European Union. These are worrisome numbers. These are numbers that are putting us to really think more. But it is a duty of not just RICO, but of all politicians to really create conditions in these regards. Then later, I think it's the space that we need to give to them. It's not only about giving space for them to be active participants somewhere. It is also about giving them a decision-making power, making them active in the big decisions that are related to their future. So this is very important, and we in RICO are already implementing it through a co-management system, we call it, because youth, together with the ministers of youth and sports in RICO, are bringing decisions for all youth policies in the region. Another thing is that we need to really support them a lot with activities, support their dreams, support their courage, support as much as it is possible, and create new perspectives. Perspectives that don't mean conflicts. They don't mean fights between North Macedonia and Bulgaria. European perspectives that mean peace and stability for them, as well as wealthiness. They don't want more. Two more things I will mention, Peter, allow me, and then I will close down. One which I consider personally to be of a high importance is the fact that practically youth are paving the road for better cooperation for the leaders in the region of Western Balkans. What I want to say is that they are examples of cooperating through our projects, let's say in super schools. We call the project of super schools, where we put young people to cooperate, exchange ideas, and work together with students from across the region. When politicians see this cooperation, this energy, this sincerity, this dream of theirs for peaceful society, I think they are paving the road, and they are giving them more courage to bring bigger decisions. Such was the Ohrid Framework Agreement, such was the Prespa Agreement. These are excellent examples which are giving them courage, and we should really promote them as much as it is possible among youth, because it gives more perspectives. I hope really that the agreement now with Bulgaria will open new perspectives also for the other places in the region. And lastly, I just want to mention the fact that RICO is a peace, as I said, a reconciliation mechanism. But when we talk about all these peace accords, it's important to know that those mechanisms should be even incorporated inside those agreements. But even if not, they can be established or developed later. And this cannot be done without full support of politicians, without full support of the leaders, which, by the way, is something that the youth are expecting. Over 47% of youth in the region are considering that political dialogue of political leaders in the Western Balkans is factor for stability and peace in the region.
Thank you very much. We have 24 more seconds, so maybe to conclude with the first Deputy Prime Minister and with the two ministers, everybody has 10 seconds. What did you learn from this panel? What are your concluding words?
In 10 seconds, I was reading the news. I hope the government in Bulgaria will survive and raise their hand to remove the veto from our bid to join the European Union in June. So let's pray for that.
I could only second that. So, and that saves another 7 seconds for Gordon.
Well, that was quick. Now I have.
Nikos, fully agreed with you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now this gives me 5 more seconds, so I have to invent something. It was a great panel. I would like to thank everybody for participating. And what you saw is that no matter how much we talk about the past, it's always the present issues, the present problems that are the ones that we need to solve. So let's hope, like our panelists said, that next year we are going to meet in Prespa in a little bit even bigger panel than this one, and we are going to invite at least one more speaker. So with this, I'm closing this panel. Let's give a big round of applause to our speakers, and thank you very much. Family photo now.